All right, so what we got here is Britt doing a heavy-ish back squat double. So let's go ahead and play this at speed. And what we're going to see is two of the most parallel squats of all time, right? So if we kind of take this back and sort of freeze frame it right at our lowest point, is this squat below parallel? Man, I really don't know, right? So we kind of look at top of the knee, hip, say maybe, but realistically that's not what we want to see here, right? What we want to see in the bottom is a femur angle that's going to be more like that, right? And we'll call that a quote unquote ass to grass squat. So what's going on here? Why is this happening? Um, and the interesting piece here is that Britt is actually extremely flexible, right? Even hypermobile at some level. So she doesn't have an ankle mobility issue. She doesn't have a hip mobility issue. Um, what's happening here is that her body is not allowing her to go lower because it doesn't feel stable, right? So we've worked a lot on her squat, and this is actually not bad for her. So if we watch this beginning piece, we can see the hips and knees both kind of initiate this movement, right? So we're going to see hips transition back as well as knees transition forward to initiate that movement. I'm pretty okay with that. And then as she goes down, something around here just kind of stops, right? And in the past, what would happen is she would actually really hyperextend her back. And there's maybe still a little bit of that going on, but it's really not bad for her. But what we're seeing instead is just kind of her body saying, okay, this is as low as I'm going to go, and I'm going to bring you back up. And what's happening there is that with a lot of these hypermobile folks, they don't have a good bracing strategy, so they don't understand what the bottom feels like, right? So they're either going to completely bottom out and end up curling over in the bottom, right? So that's when we see someone here, and then they end up going into like one of those quote unquote butt winky positions, but even worse than butt wink, just kind of a total collapse because they can get down there. Or we're going to see kind of what we just saw, which is that I don't really know where the bottom is, I don't really have good tension, and then what's probably happening here without speaking to her is that she probably got some tension through her quad and hip flexors, and that felt like the bottom, so she came up, right? And what's often happening in that case is the anterior hip starts taking over some of the stability role and kind of clamps down, and that feels like end range. So how do we fix this, right? How do we get a hypermobile individual to have a better bracing strategy to be able to squat all the way down, what she's going to need to do in order to improve her snatch and her clean and jerk, right, which is going to be a primary goal for her. Big piece here is teaching proper diaphragmatic bracing, right? So up top, what we want to see, and this is better for her, a lot of these hypermobile folks will tend to actually overarch their back, like I said before. And what we want to see instead is a good lateral expansion. Let's see if I can draw. I can't draw a line coming out, but we want to see a lateral expansion here, and then we want to see her kind of pull her abs together. So contract the lower abs, pull the rib cage down, and then that's going to take some of the tension off of this low back, right? And then that's also going to create good diaphragmatic pressure so that at the bottom here, she actually has this good pressure in her abdomen that's creating the stability piece so that the front of her hip doesn't have to take over and then kind of stop her right in this borderline parallel squat where, yeah, maybe this thing counts, but really for training, that's not what I want to see at all.